So tonight we are, Jake, do you want to do our PowerPoint?
Yes, let me share. All right.
Thank you. So closed captions are in English and Spanish. English closed captions are available within Zoom and YouTube. Users can follow this link to view both English and Spanish captions in a separate browser window, ibr.news/captions. Next slide. So reminders. We encourage EAG members to turn on your video. We love to see you. Please say your name when you begin to speak. And if you experience technical difficulties, please contact program staff at 360-329-6744. For public input instructions, there will be an opportunity to provide brief public input later in the meeting today. To submit input after the meeting, email comments to info@interstatebridge.org with EAG Public Comment in the subject line. Call 888-503-6735 and state EAG Public Comment in your message. So for today's agenda, we start with an icebreaker. Then we have a review video of 2022 IBR. We have our program administrator update. The urban design that team will come and talk with us, and a community engagement update, followed by public comment. So our icebreaker, your name and pronouns, your affiliation, and what's something on your desk, near your workspace, or out of the window that cheers you up during the day. All right, so who will begin for us? So your name and pronouns, affiliation, and something on your desk or outside your window that cheers you up during the day. Tanya. And then John.
I have a picture of two of my great nieces walking down the street holding hands. One is my niece was 11 and the little one was 3. Then the second picture right beside it is my niece was 18 and the little one was 7, and she went to go visit her at college. So it's just watching them transition in life. The same thing, both holding hands. The little one is leading in the second picture. Now the first picture, she's following. So that's that gives me inspiration on what the world could be like later in life with those two. Pronoun she, her, and I'm with the IBR. And I will pass it on to Lily.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lily Janians. My pronouns are she and her. I'm with IBR and DGF team, urban design. And what I will talk about what my view is, which I'm working from home this evening. And I have this really wonderful sunset and I have rooftops and a lot of light coming in. So that's what I get to enjoy.
Nice. John Gardner.
Yeah.
Oh,
no, go ahead.
Yeah, John Gardner had raised his hand.
Sorry about that. John Gardner. My pronouns are he, him. I'm with TriMet. And much like Tanya, I have some beautiful photos of my children at my desk, and from probably in their teens, so a couple of years ago, but pandemic photos. But it just brings me a smile. And then once in a while, my daughter will come into the office and draw on my whiteboards. And she's a great artist, so it's really inspiring just to see her talent and to show that off to folks who visit once in a while. So that's my stuff.
Tanya. Oh, actually, no, not Tanya. Someone else, or Lily.
I've already gone.
Oh, you've already gone. Okay. Shane.
Hey, Shane Valley, City of Portland, Bureau of Transportation. It doesn't always make me smile, but there's like a 100-year-old magnolia tree outside my window, and the buds are just starting to form, and I'm really looking forward to that 2 to 3 weeks when it's just in full flower, coming up in a couple months.
Nice. Miriam.
Oh gosh, Miriam Halliday with Workforce Southwest Washington, pronouns are she, her. And I'm working from my parents' house right now. So I'd say today it seems there's a wild cat running around me all day long. So that's lifted my spirits. Normally in the office, let's see, pictures, stacks. Those are things that lift me up throughout the day.
Greg.
So I'm Greg Johnson. I'm the IBR program administrator, he, him pronouns, and two things. So I am sitting in our IBR office and I have a lovely view of the I-5 bridge. So most days that puts a smile on my face. Certain days it puts a frown. But the second thing is on my board, I have a map of the lovely state of Michigan and reminds me of home. And that puts a smile on my face every day.
Awesome. Aiden.
I think Vicky had her hand up first. Vicky, you want to go before me and I'll go after?
Okay. Well, thank you for welcoming me. I'm Vicky Nakashima and I use she, her pronouns. I'm retired. I live in Camas, Washington. I've had some involvement at ODOT in my career, and I'm a founder of Partners in Diversity, which is a nonprofit that works with many employers around workplace diversity. I'm going to share a ginkgo leaf found in Vancouver. I pick up the leaves and dry them, and then I give them to people when I send them a letter or card. But the ginkgo symbolizes longevity, life, and endurance. And it lived through the Hiroshima attack, nuclear attack. It blew off all of the limbs and the leaves, but the tree survived and it bloomed again in the spring. So I think that's appropriate. We need many ginkgo trees.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. That's hard to follow. Good evening, everyone. My name is Aiden Bronauer, and I'm with the IBR team, pronouns they, them, or he, him. And similar to Shane, I have a beautiful tree out my window that brings me joy, but mine is a dogwood tree. Pretty old, and when it starts blooming, it is got beautiful pink flowers and green leaves. So I really enjoy it. Good to see you all.
Lovely. Sabrina.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you. I'm Sabrina Owens-Wilson. I use she, her pronouns. I'm with Metro. I have all kinds of things behind me that give me strength and keep me grounded. But the thing that brings me joy is my candy drawer and my desk. And my youngest son, I'm on camera like all day, every day. He sneaks under behind and comes over here and tries to get snacks. And I fuss at him and like, boy, stay out of my drawer. And he giggles and he takes my candy. So it's a whole thing that we do. And it makes me happy. It's a nice interruption to my days.
Awesome. Janelle.
Well, given that my desk is always messy, I always have to find something to bring me joy. But I have this photo that was given to me some years back. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
Can anyone guess who that is? Greg.
Looks like
Greg.
Al Green.
Close. Greg, I think Greg has the answer.
Oh, it's
Bill Withers.
I know,
Bill
I know, I
Withers,
know,
yes.
I know.
Yeah, so this is a signed photo of Bill Withers, one of my favorite artists that a friend gave to me some years back for a gift, and it sits on a bookshelf in my office. It's one of the first things I see when I walk in, and so it's just a reminder of the great music. And one of his great songs, of course, is it's all about friendship. So it's a reminder of how important it is to be a friend to someone, and for us to be a friend to others.
Great. Nolan.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Nolan Leinhart. I'm also with the urban design team for IBR. My pronouns are he, him, and the thing on my desk that makes me smile even when I'm not feeling like smiling is my Damian Lillard bobblehead that was given to me by my friend John Goodwin. So that makes me think of how funny it is to have a bobblehead on my desk, but also of my friend. So it's my item. Go Blazers.
Millicent.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy spring. My name is Millicent Williams, pronouns she, her, and I serve in support of facilitation of the conversations between our partners on the executive steering group for the IBR. I also work with the program managers group as well as the staff level group. So lots of conversations and excited to be a part of that. The thing that makes me most happy that's on my desk is a picture of my son, Ethan, who is my favorite boy, but he's not a boy anymore. He's a man, but he's still my favorite boy. And so he brings me so much joy, and it's a joy to say that he also brings joy to so many others. He's a wonderful, wonderful person. So that's what makes me happy. And that's why I do anything that I do. So.
Emily.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Emily Thomas Peralta, and I'm on the equity team for the IBR program. And I'm a very sentimental person, and I really like photos. So very visual. So I have kind of a collage of photos behind my monitors. So pictures of my sister who's no longer with us, my daughter, my stepkids, and then some favorite memories with my partner. So that I can just look above my monitor, you know, a little bit and just get a little bit of joy there. So I really enjoy that.
Thank you. Soko.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Soko Eat, he and his pronouns. On my desk, wish I could turn my camera off, but I have a photo of my grandparents on the day I graduated from college. You know, it's just, they passed away, and I look at that and it's just a reminder of everything that I do.
Thank you. Shannon.
Hi, Shannon Singleton. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm with the IBR team. I'm going a couple of ways on here, and I'm going to go with my husband and I have a rule in the house that no sports memorabilia can be in any of the shared common spaces because we like different teams. So my office is filled with the only place I'm allowed to put all my Philly stuff. So it is a very Philly heavy space that just makes me remember home and my family. And when my teams are doing good, makes me happy. And when they're not, it makes me a little bit sadder. But it's definitely my little, I'll call it my little woman cave is my office now.
Awesome. Thank you. Erica.
Hello, everyone. I'm Erica McAlpin, and my pronouns are she, her, and I am the Assistant Director for the Office of Equity and Civil Rights at ODOT. What I have in my office all around me are pictures of my children to remind me every day of what's really important.
Brent.
Brent Hamlin, IBR program staff. Pronouns are he, him. You can't really see it, but on my shoulder is a porg from Disney World. And that brings me joy. It sits on my desk. And then out my right window is a greenbelt because outside is a lot of fun. And out of my door, if my wife has her door open and I lean back really far, I can see her because she works from home as well. And so that brings me joy for sure. And then if I'm standing at my desk, when the kids come home from school, I can see the front door and they come in screaming and doing all sorts of things. And so it's always fun to see them as well. And that brings me joy.
Nice. And Jake, you'll close us out.
Has Miriam gone?
Yes.
Miriam has,
Yes.
my bad.
Yes, I did. Thank you.
My bad. Jake War, he, him pronouns. I'm on the IBR team. So I have this that a friend made, and it brings me joy because it's ridiculous. It's a meerkat in a very classical painting style. Yeah, and I collect like kind of bizarre type of art whenever I go places or when friends make it. So yeah, that brings me joy.
Thank you. All right. And Roberta Suzette and she, her pronouns. And I think what brings me joy, I like to fidget, and I have fake food beside my desk that I can take apart and put back together. And somehow I think the Japanese are amazing for having invented that, and it makes me very happy. So, yeah. So I'm going to pass to Greg Johnson for our program administrator update. Oh, wait, before I do that, I moved too fast. We have our 2022 IBR in review video.
Yes, I'll pull that up. Since we didn't meet last month, we were going to show it then. So even though 22 is far in the past, figured you all would like to see this. So I am going to share that. Share sound. Right. Now coming through.
Aaron, ready for you to release traffic. East Bridge, trunking.
Let's see if it needs to buffer for a second.
Maybe if we turn our video off.
Southwest Washington's excited to see it come into.
Oh yeah, my video.
All of us.
I'm betting it's on my end, but let me try. Let's go back a little.
We're ready for you to release traffic. East Bridge, trunking.
The whole team at Workforce Southwest Washington's excited to see it come into fruition and support the workforce needs associated.
My priority is trying to get this done in a fashion that engages people and the choices that we have to make.
We want to do it together. Yes, we
And we
do.
want to do it now, right? We want to do it now.
There's no room for
for pedestrian traffic or biking, and I'm an avid biker.
Public transit is necessary in a lot of places. People may not think so, but people work on the weekends. People work on Saturday and Sunday, and you don't always see that or get that.
We understand that transportation equals independence. Independence equals freedom. And when we can make sure that people have access to that independence and freedom, they can live their lives fully.
We've been working on this for a while, and we all agree that it's time to replace this bridge. I believe we can come together to support a bridge replacement that brings the values of both Oregon and Washington to life.
All right. We have a great, obviously, great media team that really, they do awesome work all the time. So always want to share their creations. Anyway, well, back to you, Roberta.
Thanks, Jake. That was a really good video. Thanks a lot. And kudos to the people who made it. That was really good. And now the program update with Greg Johnson.
Okay. I don't think I have any slides. I don't think.
Jake, can you confirm whether or not Greg has slides?
You do, just one. Oh. Let me pull it up. You've seen it before, so.
All right. Well, there's been, the program has been very, very busy. This is kind of our behind the scenes time frame where we are not doing a tremendous amount of public facing things, but we are still tremendously busy. We've been giving tours of the bridge. We had Congresswoman Marie Glusenkamp-Perez and her entire staff, both her Washington staff as well as her in-state staff, were in town for a retreat. And so they took some time and came by the bridge, and we gave her whole team, so it's probably close to 10 or 12 folks, a tour of the bridge. And she was tremendously impressed with the work that's facing us, and she is tremendously supportive of getting this bridge done. For those who don't know her, she was just elected. She's a freshman congresswoman from Southwest Washington. We had Congressman Rick Larson, also from the state of Washington, come and visit the bridge back in January. And we had an excellent time showing him the bridge and taking him up into the tenders booth and showing all of the mechanical workings of as of this past February, 106-year-old bridge. So very, once again, very well received, very eye-opening for them to see this narrow needle that we're trying to thread. And we actually have a picture of Congresswoman Marie Glusenkamp-Perez sticking her hand in a bucket of grease that's used to grease the cables, which extend, if laid out straight, would be 6 miles worth of cable that have to be greased several times each year. We also just wrapped up a tour with the Oregon members of the Oregon legislature, and this is meaningful because we're going to be in front of that body this spring, asking for them to match what Washington has done with $1 billion worth of revenue to help fund the construction of this project. So they asked some great questions. We took them on a tour of the program area, showed them where light rail would go and how the new bridge would be situated. So once again, the tour was very well received, and it's eye-opening once you get out there and really see how this bridge sits in context in the tight window that we are trying to fit this in. So back earlier this month, myself, the Secretary of Washington State DOT, Roger Millar, and the Director of Oregon DOT, Chris Strickler, were in Washington, D.C. For some discussions on transportation in general. But we also took some time to visit with the U.S. Department of Transportation, which is the umbrella organization for both the Federal Transit Administration and Federal Highway Administration. So we had a great conversation with them about grant opportunities. We gave them an update of where we were at. We hadn't spoke to them directly in a year. So we talked to them about reaching consensus on the locally preferred alternative. They're very, very impressed. We also talked to them about our funding requests that will come through. We shared with them the new cost estimate for the project. So they were little shocked by the price tag, but we told them it doesn't get any cheaper as we go forward. So we've got to get it done this time. So we also met with a number of members of the Oregon delegation while we were in town. And the main question they ask is how can they be helpful in moving this program forward? And we told them we're going to need their support as we are applying for grants this cycle. So they are very much in tune with that. So a good trip overall. We've been doing presentations. We were down in Wilsonville and did a presentation, or I sat on a panel for the West Side Economic Alliance. It was well received. Frank Green did a presentation for the Columbia River Economic Development Council. Also, I think Ray Mabey did the Greater Portland Incorporated. So we are trying to meet with anyone who has a voice that needs to be heard and who is either supporters or non-supporters of this. Another meeting that we just had, we had a great conversation, a very in-depth conversation with the Just Crossing Alliance. And the promise is that we will continue to meet with them to answer their questions and concerns about this program. I also did a presentation for the Northwest Minority Business Alliance in Washington. So this was a group of minority women-owned businesses who are looking for opportunities of how they can be involved with the construction or future design of this project. So we are having very good conversations. A few other things that are going on. We also are having meetings in Salem because once again, we're in front of the Oregon legislature. So we will be down in Salem this Thursday to talk with more legislators about the program. We also are hosting internal monthly transit workshops with our transit partners and the IBR team to make sure that we are lining up all of the resources necessary to make sure that transit is fully represented in the program and to make sure that we are coordinating well with the Federal Transit Administration. So great conversations going on regarding the details of whether there will or will not be park and rides in downtown Vancouver, the station locations, and starting to get details wrapped around that. We're also looking at operating costs and how those issues will be resolved. So very good conversations going on the transit front, and the partners are clicking right along with our team to make sure that transit is well represented. So on the internal side, we're also making progress as we are steaming along to get a draft supplement out yet this year. So many of you have read headlines about we were requested by our federal partners in concert with the United States Coast Guard to look at a movable span as part of our NEPA process, as part of our draft supplement. So we are undertaking that. This will cost us some time on getting the draft supplement out, but we are planning on it not impacting our overall time frame to get our final record of decision, our final supplemental done by the end of 2024. So the ask is to make sure we understand all of the impacts and implications of what a movable span would look like. It does not mean that we are building a movable span, but we need to understand what a movable span would mean for this region. So those are the things that are going on in the program, and I will take any questions or concerns that that folks may have.
Greg, I'm wondering if you can quickly just give a brief definition of the movable span, because I know might not be clear to everyone.
Excellent. So currently, if you've ever crossed a bridge, what we have now is called a lift span. You see the huge towers with the counterweights, and those counterweights come down and the bridge deck lifts up. So that is one type of movable span. There's also a bascule bridge, which has leads that open and give you unlimited height. So the third type of movable span is actually the railroad bridge just downstream from us, which is a swing span, which pivots and opens so shipping traffic can go through. So those are the three basic types of movable spans. So a swing bridge at this location is not feasible due to the geometrics, but we would be looking at more than likely a lift span or a bascule or what you would consider a drawbridge. So, but once again, we are still pursuing mitigating the users that need more than the 116 feet that we are proposing. So that is still our primary goal, is to get to that 116-foot fixed span. That's what the partners have told us they value, and that's what we have heard from the public that they value, is not putting another stoplight on the freeway. So we will meet our requirements from our federal partners and the U.S. Coast Guard and complete the study diligently and thoroughly. But once again, we have heard from our partners that there is not interest in putting a lift span back on the interstate. So with that, any other questions or concerns on any of the issues that we've talked about? Shane.
Hey, Greg. I know that we've studied the lift span before, and the message is pretty clear from our regional partners. I'm wondering if in that past work, or if you can anticipate sort of what you guys might uncover as far as what are some of the equity implications of this. I know like the lift span will cause more delays to transit than what we're currently proposing, and more congestion potentially. And I'm wondering if there are any other ideas you have about what other equity implications, the difference between what you guys are proposing now versus this studied lifespan.
So there are other implications for equity because you now have tracks and an electrical power system that is now has to be disjointed by a movable span. You actually have to slow down your light rail vehicles to cross that interface of a lift span. So your headways now get delayed. We're talking to the Coast Guard about whether they could restrict the lifts only to the middle of the night. But once again, if you work in the middle of the night, which a lot of folks do, and you have to cross this bridge, that has impacts to you as a user. And like I said, most folks who are working in the middle of the night, they aren't working white collar jobs. There are folks who are working jobs that they have to drive, they have to go across that bridge during those hours. So there are some equity issues related to a lift span, but all of those things will be talked about, will be brought out, and it will be part of our draft supplement that, like I said, we're hoping to have out by the end of the year. But good question, Shane.
Thank you, and thanks for previewing that.
Other questions or concerns for me? All right, well, Dr. Hunt, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so I want to invite Nolan Lienhart to talk with us about the urban design process.
Hi, everybody. Again, Nolan Lienhart with the IBR Urban Design Team, and my colleague Lily is with me. This is the start of a period of more intense urban design discussion, engagement, study that we'll be entering into. The process will probably run 18 to 24 months, and this is the first conversation, so it really is a high-level overview of urban design process. And we realize that there's different people with different levels of exposure and experience with the concept of urban design. So we wanted to start out by just doing a little bit of urban design 101, get people to a level set of understanding of what we'll be doing. And so Lily's going to start that.
Great. Thank you, Nolan. Hi, everyone. I am excited to speak to you all today about the urban design and how it plays an important role in facilitating the IBR program. Next slide, please. So we use the term urban design to speak to design implementation at truly all scales. And we're going to talk to you about what we mean by that when we say scales. And so today we'd like to start off by speaking to what we mean by urban design in general, and then dive into how urban design applies to the IBR program. So next slide, please. Start off with defining urban design. And I do want to caveat here and say that the description we have here on the screen for you is our interpretation based on the scope of the IBR program. And so if I could summarize it, what we believe urban design is a practice that brings together multiple disciplines at different scales, layers those various disciplines together, coordinating them across different systems in order to create a context-sensitive solution that is shaped by its community and stakeholders. So, for example, urban design synthesizes input from mobility, land use, zoning, open space, buildings, infrastructure, and urban economics to create a product that is truly unique to that place. Next slide. And so without urban design, we may end up with projects that fit the quantifiable criteria for safety and security or whatever other kind of requirements that project had, but only filling the quantifiable criteria doesn't create places that we truly enjoy being in. So we have a few precedents that demonstrate what we mean by that. And again, these examples that we have here for you today are not necessarily specific to IBR. They are to show you the diverse ways urban design makes a positive impact on the way we experience places. So here, this particular example is from Paris, which was originally designed to be a large public square that was designated for public use, but was not really a place where people wanted to be. In fact, if you came across it, you hurried past it as quickly as possible. So when urban design was integrated into the planning of the plaza, the new design reflected human scale aspects that included, seating and benches, pedestrian scale lighting, special paving, just more granular landscape design solutions, and improved mobility circulation around the site. All of these things collectively are part of urban design, in which create these really fantastic spaces that are pedestrian focused and reflect our human scale, and really make places where you want to be. Next, please. So a great example of an infrastructure improvement project is the highway cap from Dallas, Texas. This is known as the Clyde Warren Park, which is, again, not just, not simply a project that capped a highway, but this project really focused on creating a place that incorporates strong placemaking qualities, right? And so that includes really great landscaping, very thoughtful programming, like what goes into the space, right, into this park to make it active and vibrant, including retail activation. There were really great pet and bike connections. And all of these things collectively not only merged a community that was separated from itself for years because of the highway, but it really created a place for the entire city. Next slide. So this is a precedent that I imagine most of you are familiar with. It's the Alaskan Way Viaduct in Seattle that removed an outdated and structurally inefficient, raised freeway and brought it back to grade. And so now as a qualitative solution, that is all that they could have done, right? But integrating urban design, the city was able to create thoughtful solutions that addressed the treatment along the riverfront, focusing not just on safe, but also pleasant and enjoyable intersections and crossings. And it also integrated open space and updated land use and zoning to create a thriving economy along this corridor. Next slide. And so this is the last precedent we have to show you, and I hope everyone recognizes this precedent, which is the Vancouver Land Bridge, which is a bike and pedestrian bridge over SR14, which again could have easily been a simple engineering solution, a straight shot kind of metal pedestrian bridge. But by integrating urban design, it created a really thoughtful land bridge connection that not only connects pedestrians and bikers, but it also pulls this character of the adjacent park, bringing that landscape and softness to the bridge itself, which gives it a completely different, again, qualitative, experiential quality for the user. Slide. So I've mentioned scales a few times in this presentation. And so urban design can be applied at all different scales. And we work from extra large scale, right? And this is looking at IBR in this particular graphic. It's looking at IBR holistically along the Pacific coast, studying mobility movements that impact rail and freeway freight, to the large scale, which is driving into the metro scale, capturing those multiple municipalities. In this example here, we're showing how this particular project impacts both Portland and Vancouver. And here we're looking at high levels strategic opportunities. At the medium scale, we get into the neighborhood, or at those kind of few blocks, getting into more concrete detail of a place. And lastly, at the small scale, we actually get into the site itself and really get into the details and the nuances of the design details. Next slide. And again, as I mentioned earlier, urban design is a multidisciplinary practice. We are facilitating engagements of all these different disciplines. And with each discipline, we utilize various tools and methods to bring them to that qualitative level. So on this particular slide, we have identified some of the tools that we use. And of course, this is not an exhaustive list. This list could go on really, but we just wanted to bring you a few examples. So if we talk about, if you keep the previous slide in mind where we talk about large, extra large, large, medium, and small scale. So an example of a large scale, which is looking at that metro area, we can be looking at infrastructure, connectivity, mobility, and transit, and economic growth projections. At a medium scale, which is that neighborhood scale, we can be looking at neighborhood character, land use, zoning, demographics, open space, market demands, mobility and connectivity. And at the small scale, we can really get into that granular, like street sections, activation elements, right? Creating pedestrian experiences that are pleasant and enjoyable, welcoming and safe. And of course, some of these tools, like equity and community input, are actually used across all of the scales. So hopefully that was a helpful introduction to urban design, and I'm going to pass it on to my colleague Nolan to speak about how it all applies to IBR.
Thanks, Lily. So as we think about applying the elements of urban design that Lily just presented to our particular corridor, it's important to understand the places and the intersecting systems that we're dealing with that are unique to this place. Next. So first, obviously, commerce is huge. Interstate 5 is a corridor that goes all the way from Mexico to Canada and carries goods and people. As you zoom down to this scale, as Lily was describing, these are facilities that are serving 2 ports, urban employment centers. We have a nationally recognized marine corridor on the Columbia River. So as we think about the urban design implications, thinking about the characteristics and the people and the portions of our region that are served in this corridor are critical. Next. We also have natural systems, hydrology being just one of them, that we will want to be considering in terms of how the program elements impact it, how the urban design of this place can celebrate the natural systems of the Columbia River, and how we can seek to make sure that that is as thoughtful as possible as we begin to develop concepts. Next. Community and equity is huge. There are a range of diverse communities along the corridor, some of which we know are represented in this equity advisory group. And there are communities also and stories in history that we want to make sure are being recognized, elevated, and honored and respected. And so thinking about those, accounting for them, and making sure that we're being aware of them as we do our urban design work is really important. Next. So one of the greatest opportunities that we have in this program is that today, and to a degree in the future, the freeway represents a kind of barrier. The river represents a kind of barrier. The rail line in Vancouver represents a bit of a barrier. And so understanding those barriers and where they exist today is really important. Understanding the ways in which the east and the west portions of this corridor are separated, understanding the ways in which the north-south connections are complicated is really important. Next. There are a number of connections that already exist and that are connecting the communities and the subareas of those communities on each side of the freeway, each side of the river. And so we're evaluating the quality of those connections, where they exist and where they don't exist, maybe in some cases where they have existed in the past, and understanding which of those may be good and which of those may be insufficient today. Next. And so as we do that, we begin to understand opportunities to strengthen them, to potentially add new connections. As the example that Lily showed of the land bridge, which is also shown here in the bottom left, it's a great example of an area where a desired connection was made, and it was created in a way that was both successful from that quantitative perspective of how do we make a connection where one doesn't exist, but also from a qualitative perspective where it's really enhancing place, honoring the history in the past of the area. And so that's sort of the spirit that we would want to approach opportunities like this going forward. Next. And then, of course, the extension of high capacity transit from Expo Center to the north presents many opportunities. And those opportunities tend to be focused in what we call station areas. And so those may be transit elements themselves that involve a certain level of urban design, but also the ways in which the introduction of high capacity transit supports land use changes, some of which is already being planned by City of Portland and City of Vancouver. Next. So we wanted to give a little bit of a preview of how we'll be engaging with you in the coming months about the urban design topics. Mostly we are going to be organizing these by geography. And so we're calling them focus areas that have sort of geographic proximity and affinity from a land use perspective. Some of them are very, very logical and make sense and reflect station areas as well as areas of sort of land use relationship. In other cases, you can see that we've overlapped a couple of the focus areas. The places where the bridge touches down in Vancouver and Portland, those are obviously part of the bridge and the bridge design itself, but they're also going to be parts of the Vancouver waterfront and its character, or Hayden Island and its character. So as we walk through these, we'll be having meetings where we're going to be focusing on one of these focus areas at a time, talking through the issues, and we've listed what some of those issues are here. Again, this is not an exhaustive list, but it's our start at what we think some of those issues are. And of course, we'll benefit from engagement with groups like yours in terms of understanding them, since in a lot of cases, you know these areas better than we do. The last thing Lily mentioned, that climate and equity are sort of corridor-wide considerations in our urban design process. And so we've sort of put a big box around everything to indicate that those may be tailored and applied in specific geographic areas, but we also expect there to be some consistency about the ways we address climate and the ways we address equity throughout the corridor. Next. So as Lily described, urban design is really the intersection of a number of different kinds of practices. It is a very interdisciplinary practice. And so we'll be thinking about individual systems and what their needs are in order to be successful and efficient. But we'll also be thinking about how they relate to one another. In order to do that successfully, we really need to think about some of the place characteristics that I just described, but also what are our goals and objectives. Fortunately, we're starting with a lot of that work being done with the program-wide purpose and need and the vision and values. We know that your group has discussed these, so we're not starting from scratch, but really building upon that as we start to translate that into urban design principles and goals. Next. I think one back, yeah. So these are the purpose and need, the vision and values, and the desired outcomes. And these are all going to be sort of the foundation upon which we translate urban design goals that may be corridor-wide, they may be specific to individual focus areas. And hopefully you're familiar with these, but as we go through, we'll try to continue to return to these and understand the ways in which the conceptual designs that we're developing relate to them, promote them, and help to prioritize the decisions that we have to make with regard to urban design. Next. So we wanted to put these on a screen as we transition to a discussion or a Q&A section of this meeting. These are drawn from previous public engagement processes in this corridor that begin to articulate some of the goals, objectives, desires, It's not intended to be comprehensive. It's not even a draft, but they do feel relevant specifically to this corridor. So we thought it was a good place to start and that it would help to stimulate conversation. So I think what's helpful to us is if you look at these and you say, wow, these look great. Let's adopt or engage them as we look into urban design. Or if you said, boy, it seems like there's some things missing, both of those are helpful. Or if they stimulate other kinds of questions, that's helpful too. So if it's okay, I think maybe we leave these on screen while we have some discussion, or Lily and I are available for questions.
All right, thank you. Thank you both. I learned a lot. So, all right, so to the group, what does what are these bubbles of kind of areas of focus? What do they stimulate? Sabrina.
Hi, I have a question. I'm Sabrina from Metro. Thank you for the presentation. I wanted to see if you could give maybe a couple examples of like where there's opportunity to when we think about equity, like what are some examples of like the real opportunities when we think about urban design for this effort? I think maybe just some kind of concrete examples to help land my thinking would be helpful.
Yeah, and I can start, Nolan, if you want to add. I think for as we've had many discussions and working through safety and security as part of that, right? And how do we get in and out of places? How do we move throughout the space, and at that same time creating a space that's inviting, welcoming, and safe and secure for everyone, right? And so that's one of the ways that urban design will be integrating those elements that create and enhance those qualities.
Great.
Yeah, it's a great example. And one of the things we've spent a lot of time talking about as an urban design team is the ways in which different folks see an issue like safety and security differently. And so it's important to ask and listen so that we make sure we're not listening to one perspective and delivering what feels safe and secure to one particular kind of person in a way that may not feel safe and secure to another type. Station access, light rail station access would be another example where as we start to think about the ways that we provide access to stations, those may, we always talk about equity being the distribution of benefits and burdens of a project. And so high capacity transit is a benefit. How are we prioritizing that access? And that could be anything from options that we have in terms of vertical access, stairs and elevators and things like that from an ADA perspective, visibility of a station. If there are some slight options in terms of sliding it 200 feet this way or 200 feet this way, there are equity implications to those. And so even without having done the work, I think what's important at this stage is that we're anticipating asking ourselves the question at every stage, what are the equity implications of this decision?
Shane.
Thank you for that answer, Lily and Nolan. I really appreciate the acknowledgement that you gotta ask, and sometimes just running the crime prevention through environmental design playbook is not the right move. I'm wondering if you can think of examples in past work or something relevant to this around when maybe something called for some kind of crime prevention through environmental design, but there's some kind of culturally specific consideration that made you choose something different, or maybe it had nothing to do with the sort of the CEPTED handbook, and it was just thinking of just wanting to build on Sabrina's question, like what are some examples from your work where you've
So it's funny, this one is not a infrastructure project, but we are working with the Latino Network to develop their headquarters facility in East Portland. And early on, I think the goals of that facility were very clearly established as a community gathering place. And so how would we approach community gathering places as being open, transparent, visible, on display, right? Well, there are a lot of undocumented members of that community. And for them, being in a safe community environment meant I may not want to be in a room with lots of windows. I may not want a front door that is very easy to walk into. There may be a need to greet someone at the front door and make sure that the people who are in that space are part of the community rather than, say, law enforcement. And so it was a task for us to think about how do you make a community space feel, as Lily said, welcoming and engaging while others feel safe. And so that's a good example of where sometimes the equitable design outcome is not, your standard urban design 101, follow all the rules and you'll get good urban places or public realm. But it was also an example where we would not have come to that except through a conversation with the people who are using that space in the community for whom it is designed.
Yeah, and I will echo that. I don't think I have a particular example to give, but this is just to note what Nolan is speaking to, right? Designing in general, like good design practice is an iterative process. And very often in that process, we will take the feedback back, synthesize it, right? And say, well, this is what you told us, and now we put it out there. But we misunderstood aspects of it, right? And this is what Nolan is speaking to. What's really great and welcoming, inviting is these big, open, transparent spaces. And then you take it back to the community. And that's why the iterative process is so important. You go through this back and forth until you get it really right.
Awesome. Those are both really good examples. And yeah, sometimes eyes on the street doesn't work when you don't want those, when those particular eyes are not the ones that make you feel safe or make you feel comfortable. Just a totally unrelated comment. You guys had that slide that was the IBR program, purpose, need, vision, and values. And desired outcomes, and under desired outcomes was listed centering equity and climate change. And I just wanted to offer that the desired outcomes, you're probably familiar with the like the conditions of approval that all of the partner agencies sort of submitted, and the tome that is. But the desired outcomes, I think, also offer some pretty helpful guidance as far as expectations on the part of partners in all of the purpose and need areas and equity. So I think that letting that also be I just wanted to point out that that's the case, because that diagram doesn't really sort of show that, and just making sure that you guys know that that's a place that you can go to, and there's really some really specific statements about what a successful program looks like to the partners. Thank you.
Thank you for that note.
Sabrina.
I have a question about evaluation. So we've had a lot of conversations about different components of this project, and like how we'll know whether we've achieved equitable outcomes. So whether it's access or economic benefits. And so I'm curious, like, how you think about evaluation of urban design in terms of equity outcomes. I'll just ask the question.
Well, it's a challenging conversation, and I think at a future meeting we have some content that we'd love to talk with you about. The easy complicated answer is that it's not the same everywhere, right? It's not, there's no checklist where you say we've done these things and therefore it is equitable. And so in a lot of ways, it is that process of listening, elevating underrepresented voices, and providing an opportunity to get that input and demonstrate where we either have been responsive, or if we haven't, why we haven't. And so it's not over promising about what we can deliver, but it is being clear and transparent about what we can deliver. And I think it's the process of going through that. Even though I would love to say, here's outcomes and you can measure, the equity outputs of them. I think it is the process that creates the legitimacy. And I know that there is a community benefit agreement conversation happening. In many ways, that is probably going to be more quantifiable. And we're still figuring out exactly how the work that we're doing serves that conversation and vice versa.
Thank you.
So just a comment and observation. I've been working in infrastructure space for 40 years. And there are certain projects that you go back to and you feel welcome. And there are certain projects that you go back to and you don't. You feel, this doesn't embrace me. It doesn't make me feel that I should be here. I should be here walking. I should be here riding my bike. I think what we're trying to create with the urban design space is that welcoming space so folks can come in and feel comfortable and not just view this as a chunk of infrastructure, but as something that is welcoming to them, that is integrated into the context of the community. So it's one of those things that is hard to describe, but you will know it when you start to see it and when you start to feel it. So I am ultimately confident that Nolan and Lily are going to lead us on a path of looking at elements that you will say, yeah, that feels like it is welcoming to me, and that I would want to come and sit in this space, walk in this space, and for all you non-car folks, even ride my car in this space. So I want transit stops that are welcoming, that make me say, yeah, this is good. So it's hard to put a finger on. So Sabrina, I see your question is a struggle of what does it mean? We will get there, and the folks on this group will say, yeah, the process and the outcome reflects what we think is important in this community. So,
Greg, thank you for that point, and I'm glad you framed it that way, because one of the virtues of the iterative process that Lily described is that ideally we're showing you in a way that allows you to look at it and tell us if it does feel welcoming, and if not, why not. And so a lot of these things, you don't know it until you see it.
Well, and I hear in that too, it's both qualitative and quantitative evaluation. They're both important, and you get different types of information from each.
And I think for all of you, as you are part of this and you move forward, when you're in public spaces, just observe for a minute, and ask yourself, do I like this space? Do I not like this place? Do I feel safe? Right? These are the things that Greg is speaking to, that we pass through spaces all the time and we don't think about it, right? And we like spaces and we don't know why, and we don't like spaces and we don't know why, right? But if you sit there and ponder for a minute, you're going to find the things that you're going to be like, oh, this is why I like it, right? It has a really great tree canopy over here, and it gives me the shade and the greenness and the lushness of this, or the signage is really straightforward and it's easy to understand, and or there's water features or art or wherever that may be, right?
Vicky, and then Millicent.
Yeah, I wanted to mention a couple of things. I don't know that I'm officially on this committee, so bear with me. One is that there's quite a bit of momentum right now to revive recognition of the Expo Center as the location where Japanese Americans were interned before the camps were built. And it has some very ugly memories, but also the Japanese American community wants to identify those areas like the Puyallup Fairgrounds and the Expo Center that are still remaining parts of those buildings where our grandparents and parents were incarcerated. So I think if you could incorporate into some of the landscape or transit centers, the recognition of that bad piece of history, it would be important. The other one is that this may be far afield, but in my experience, many of the communities of color, including Asians and Native Americans and African Americans, have always loved fishing, and there are not a lot of places in the urban areas where you can fish. And I am not sure how that might be incorporated, whether it's like little docks where kids could go and throw a pole. I mean, I don't even know that the water's right, but I'm just wondering if even in some of the areas between the bridge and where the water isn't moving, like the Columbia River, there might be some places where urban children and families could go and fish safely. So those are my two thoughts.
Thank you so much for that, Vicki.
Millicent.
Yeah, I just wanted to share, and this is kind of a follow on to what was said a little earlier. When you're experiencing your community there, and Greg said it really well, you know, you don't know why something doesn't or does feel good or right. For those of you who are in Portland, I'm going to give you some places to think about, and this will really help to, and even if you're not from Portland, but you've been to Portland, to this part of town, it'll help to really underscore what Greg and others have said. Think about the Pearl and whether or not you feel welcome there, whether or not you feel like it's a place that's comfortable and that's for you. Think about the stores that are there. Think about the restaurants that are there. Think about the way that people move around in the Pearl. That is a community that many people have said they feel completely excluded from. And they can't put their finger on why, but it doesn't feel welcoming for them. And then another part of town that I would encourage you to think about is the stretch of Martin Luther King from Broadway to past Killingsworth. So can't think of the street that I'm trying to think of, but it's Columbia, from Broadway to Columbia, and how the whole street changes the further in you are to town, to the part of town where a lot of people of color were displaced from. As you move down the corridor, you feel like it feels more highway-like, and you it's almost like a snap where it changes, like at Killingsworth. And it's like, wait a minute, what happened? What happened to the crossings? What happened to all the lights? What happened to the tree canopy? What happened to it? And I recognize that Martin Luther King at parts of it, for parts of it, it's used more as to accommodate freight and other things. And it is a state road, but that's when you drive down that street now, I would encourage you to think about it, because you're going to say, oh, I'm experiencing this differently now. And I now understand what they were saying when it's an intangible thing, but it feels interesting, different, weird, hard, or distant.
not connected to me. Those are a couple of really like tangible examples that I've heard other people say and that I've experienced it myself. Say, what is it about this that doesn't feel good? It just doesn't feel good. And that's what we want for this experience to be, not just the bridge crossing, but a good sentiment about what this community can and should be based on and built around this connection between communities. That's all.
Allison.
All right. Well, I know that Nolan and Lily, we get to have you come again. So thank you for introducing us to this conversation. There's a lot of information and also it like as we're talking, I was thinking like, okay, so what are the places in Portland and Vancouver that I feel welcome and that kind of stand out to me. So I'm gonna pay attention to that. So thank you. And so how about we take a 5-minute break and come back at 6:55. Thank you, everyone. All right, everyone, let's come back. Let's come back. It's good to see everyone. Thank you. Thank you. And we will turn over to Brian Stebbins to talk with us about the community engagement update.
You there, Brian?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Hunt. I was just waiting for the slides to pop up before jumping in, if that's all right.
Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself as I pull those up?
Yep, I was going to say, I will do that. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Brian Stebbins. I'm a member of the IBR community engagement team. And I note that Salome typically will show up and present before you. So she is unable to do so tonight. So I was asked to step in, and I will be giving the update. Thank you, Jake, for the slides. So I just wanted to share a couple things that are occurring. And so for our upcoming community engagement, we're building towards the release of the draft supplemental environmental impact statement, which will be coming out later this year. And there are several different things that we plan on doing between now and the release of the draft supplemental. And so 4 things that I plan on speaking with you about tonight are bolded here, but know that we will also continue to provide briefings to community-based organizations and neighborhoods, provide affinity listening sessions and community briefings to those who ask, and as we do proactive outreach to folks as well. And then youth press conferences and IBR staff office hours. And the 4 things I'd like to share more about would be the mini grant partnerships with CBOs. And for that, again, just as a reminder that we intend on doing that again, and we'll have applications and starting that process out, and we'll be working alongside our community-based organizations to make sure people are informed as we're in this, say, sort of quiet process of analyzing the modified LPA. And apologies for the whiny dog in the background. And so the other things I'll be mentioning tonight are the equity roundtables, neighborhood forums, and tabling at fairs and festivals. But just wanted to zoom out real quick and give the full picture of the activities we plan on doing. And I will dive more deeply into the 4 bolded activities on the next few slides. So next slide, please. Thank you, Jake. Yes, we have our equity roundtable this Thursday, March 23rd, and the topic is Women Paving the Way. And this is a panel discussion focusing on women in infrastructure. And typically, transportation or infrastructure has been a male-dominated field. And so what we want to do is just share what motivated these women to work in this field, and what's the impact they've had, and what is IBR doing to encourage women to join the field through our work. And this will be held again on Thursday from 6 to 7:30, and I hope you're able to join us. Next slide, please. So neighborhood forums. We will be hosting these this spring, and we are working in collaboration with neighborhoods adjacent to the program corridor to help get feedback on the timing and venue of possible locations to hold the event. And our mission is really to just meet with the residents of these neighborhoods and inform them of what's coming up with the draft supplemental being released and answer any questions they might have during this period of time. And then also just go over what to expect during this period and just remind them of the upcoming formal public comment period as well as an opportunity to provide public input and just share how that input is then used to inform the final supplemental. Next slide. Thank you. So for our breakout room discussion, we would really like to get your feedback and input on these three questions of what are the top 3 events you would like IBR to attend this spring and summer, and what community organizations should we partner with, and what are some equity priority media outlets or contacts that you have that you'd like to share with us so we can continue to have that ongoing feedback loop to reach as many people as possible and continue to dig deep so people know that we're here and can have that dialogue with them. And I guess this is the point, Jake, where we're going to be going to the breakout room. So I'll let you take it from here.
And I will. I think Brent. Let's do. What do you think, Dr. Hunt? 15 minutes, 12 minutes in breakouts.
12, I think.
All right, let's go ahead and do that. Does everyone have the 3 questions down? So the top 3 events that you would like us to attend this summer, community organizations to partner with through our mini grant program, and media outlets or contacts that you have with a focus on equity. Oh, and I'm seeing that Brent's computer just froze, and so and he's connecting to audio.
Well, why don't we just do it here?
Yeah, we could just do that. That works.
I mean, I always think about Good in the Hood this summer.
I was going to say the same thing. At the City of Portland, we've had a lot of good luck with engagement going to that event.
It's a fun one. And what is the Sunday Parkways?
Vancouver has a really good Saturday market almost every day, every weekend, it feels like in the summer.
Possessions, compassion.
For those of you that want to provide public comment tonight, please know that you'll be entered into the waiting room, and then when public comment time is appropriate, you'll be brought into the meeting. You will be prompted to unmute, *6 to unmute, *9 to raise your hand. And sorry about my technical difficulty earlier, but my headset or something just quit working. And for those of you wishing to provide public comment tonight, just know it's best when you call in to go ahead and mute YouTube and to only listen on your phone, but to make a verbal comment, the meeting ID, or please call 253-215-8782. The meeting ID is 986-0940-5983. The passcode is 701376. Dial *9 to raise your hand. You'll be called upon, and dial *6 to unmute yourself. Please provide your name and affiliation. About 2 minutes per public comment. And if you don't have a chance to speak, you can still provide comments after the meeting. You can fill out the comment form on the program website or email your comments to info@interstatebridge.org with EAG Public Comment in the subject line. Or you can also call 888-503-6735 and state EAG Public Comment in your message.
Thank you. All right, so thank you, Brian, for everything, and we hope we've been helpful.
Oh, yes. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Good, good, good. All right, well, let's move to public comment.
I don't see Jake back yet.
Okay. They must have gotten on a roll.
Now they're coming back.
Okay. Great. All right. Well, Jake, I was thinking we should move to public comment.
Yeah. Okay. Take it away.
All right, so comment instructions. To make a verbal comment, to make a live comment via phone, dial 253 215-8782 with the meeting ID 98609405983. Passcode 701376. Dial *9 to raise your hand. The facilitator will call on participants to provide comment. Dial *6 to unmute yourself. Please provide your name and affiliation. Commentators will be given 2 minutes to speak. And if we run out of time and you have not had a chance to speak, you can still provide. So Brent, do we have a comment instructions to submit a comment after the meeting?
Sorry, I was thinking let's because I think we've got some folks maybe in the waiting room. Brent, is that correct?
I don't see them in the waiting room, but Zoom has crashed on me twice tonight. So
okay, there was someone that it just said iPhone that was going in and out. So I was gonna see if.
Yeah, I don't see them now, Jake.
All right. Sorry, Roberta. Sorry to interrupt. I'll pull that back up.
To submit a comment after the meeting, fill out the comment form on the program website. Email your comments to info@interstatebridge.org with EAG Public Comment in the subject line. Call 888-503-6735 and state EAG Public Comment in your message. Written comments need to explicitly say EAG Public Comment in the subject line or in the body of the message for them to be identified and distributed to EAG members. All written comments must be received prior to 48 hours in advance of each upcoming meeting in order to be distributed to advisory group members. Comments received after that point will be distributed to members in advance of their next meeting.
I'm just going to go back up to this slide and keep that up for a second in case there's some folks who are just joining and wanting to call in. There is also, and this slide doesn't say this, but we have opened up the option to join the Zoom room, which on the agenda there is a link to that, and you can join the Zoom room and we'll unmute you there to share a comment.
Today we may not have public comment.
Sounds like we probably don't.
All right, so let's do our meeting evaluation poll and our wrap up of 3 takeaways from the meeting today. So 3 takeaways. Well, I know for myself, I learned about urban design, and it has my wheels turning a bit about what that will be like.
So Dr. Hunt, I don't know if it's a learn or a takeaway. I'm excited for what we can do on this project to integrate all of those elements of urban design, placemaking, to make this a space where people want to be. So.
Yeah. yeah, I feel excited about that too. I hadn't thought about that. Last takeaway.
I loved the fact about the tree that Vicky shared. The
ginkgo.
The ginkgo, yeah. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I appreciated Vicky. I haven't gotten to cross paths with Vicky, and that was really nice. I've enjoyed you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, yeah. And you too, Soko. I feel like this is one of your early meetings, and so I'm really glad you're here.
Thank you, Dr. Hunt.
Yeah. All right. So our next go round is April 17th, 5:30 to 7:30. And we will talk about our draft financial plan for the project. And then of course, mark your calendars for May 15th, 5:30 to 7:30. All right. Thank you everyone for your participation, and have a good evening and happy spring.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.